Guys, what's good? What's good? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. And we now have a situation where Manny Pacquiao may be stripped of his WBA world titles because of the fact that he's going to fight Conor McGregor. Now, a lot of people have messaged me and asked my opinion on this. And I think it's a load of nonsense, really, if I'm honest with you. I understand that the boxing world may want to see they may want to see, a unified or undisputed champion, etc. And they feel by Manny fighting Conor McGregor, that'll stop that. However, we've just been through a pandemic. Manny Pacquiao fought in July, and then obviously I still think Manny was out the ring for a very long time because he fought in July against Keith Dem, and then he didn't fight, and then obviously the pandemic hit about March time. So that's still about 9 months out the ring, and he never had any fight scheduled. So obviously, they want the division to move on. However, a fight with Conor McGregor doesn't hold that. It's basically them trying to bully Manny in fighting someone like a Spence or a Crawford. And the WBA don't feel that Conor McGregor fight is a worthy fight, so they'll strip him of that belt, which I find kind of weird because Manny Pacquiao is a huge attraction, and surely the WBA would want Manny Pacquiao to hold that belt. I don't know why they wouldn't want Manny Pacquiao to hold that belt, if I'm honest with you, because who else is gonna hold it that's gonna have the kind of value that Manny Pacquiao brings by holding that belt? I find that a bit strange, but that's their stance according to the article, according to the Boxing News article that I read, that Manny Pacquiao will be stripped if he fights Conor McGregor, which I find kind of ludicrous. I find kind of weird, if I'm honest with you. Why they're worried about stripping Manny Pacquiao? There's so many other things in boxing that that can be ironed out, and like I said, Manny Pacquiao's earned the right to fight who he wants, and if he's holding a WBA belt, they shouldn't be stripping him, because Manny Pacquiao will fight. I think Manny Pacquiao will, in my opinion, fight a Crawford or fight a Spence, and even though I don't think he has to and he shouldn't, I don't particularly think he should. In that case, he'd probably give it up himself. But I think the fact that he's holding on to the WBA belt is because he wants to fight one of those guys. He wants to become the undisputed welterweight champion at his age and do something iconic, by finishing off his career by becoming an undisputed champion, something that he's never been before. But I just don't agree with the stance of the WBA to strip Manny Pacquiao, because Manny Pacquiao against Crawford or Spence is bigger than any other fight. There's no other fight, that doesn't involve Manny Pacquiao. I think Manny Pacquiao involved fighting Spence or fighting Crawford, whatever, is a massive fight. It's probably bigger than them both fighting each other financially. So again, I feel like Manny Pacquiao fighting Conor McGregor could be a tune-up, just get the rust, because Manny Pacquiao could be out of the rings for at least 2 years when he steps in the ring next time. Because he fought, in 2019? Now, there's unlikely Manny's going to fight this year, right? And is he going to start at the start of next year? Who knows? So he could be out potentially nearly 2 years. And at his age, that's crazy time to be out the ring. So I think a fight with Conor McGregor makes a lot of sense, just to knock off the cobwebs, and then he can jump into a massive fight. Manny Pacquiao's not in the stage of his career now where he's going to be taking too many tune-ups. He's too old for that. Every fight's got to make financial sense. Every fight's got to mean something to him, because otherwise it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense for him at his age just to be taking a fight for the sake of it, just because he's trying to get a tune-up. He's not young anymore. He's an old man now. But I think the stripping him is ridiculous. I don't think he should be stripped. I think Manny should be able to fight who he wants. But of course, boxing politics and, these officials, I don't know what they're thinking. You never get what they're thinking. Sometimes their their decision making is all warped, and you think that, okay, you're thinking about stripping Manny Pacquiao, but yet the WBC has sanctioned Canelo to fight Avni Yildirim, right? For a like, come on, man. And then can you understand why boxing fans get peed off? Because they see all that nonsense, right? And then, yes, I get Manny fighting McGregor, and it's not a big fight. It's not, I mean, a big fight for the division. It's a big fight financially for both men. They'll make a lot of money, but it's not a great fight in terms of the welterweight division. Yes, but Manny Pacquiao is going to be out of the ring for a long time. He needs a tune-up fight, and the tune-up fight is going to pay him a lot of money. And eventually, if he wants to hold on to that WBA World Championship, it's probably because he wants to fight Spence or Crawford. Manny doesn't need the WBA belt. Why does Pacquiao need the WBA belt? He's achieved it all. Him holding that belt isn't going to mean anything. Because if he wants to, even without that belt, he could fight Spence and Crawford. They'd fight him within a heartbeat. They'd sign that in the dotted line within a heartbeat. So Manny doesn't need that WBA belt. You'd think that they would want him to hold that belt. So I don't understand. I don't understand why they would be thinking about stripping him. It doesn't make any sense to me. If anything, surely by him holding that belt, most organizations like the WBC, WBA want their belts to be held by prestigious champions, and Pacquiao's the most prestigious champion out there in world boxing today. There isn't a boxer in world boxing active today that's achieved more than Manny Pacquiao. It's a fact. It's a fact. So why they would be thinking about stripping him is beyond me. I don't even think it's good for the. Is it good for the division that another vacant belt? Because who's going to hold that belt? All right, Thurman might become champion. Yeah, you're giving another young guy a chance to become world champion. But the fact is, Thurman was the champion and he got beat. So are you going to give somebody else a chance to hold a belt? And who's going to be more qualified or a better boxer right now than Manny that you think in the welterweight division? Sean Porter? I think Manny beats Sean Porter. I think Manny beats everybody. The only tough fights that he's got is Spence and Crawford. He's already beaten, in my opinion, Thurman, who beat Porter and Garcia. Thurman was seen as the third best welterweight. He beat him. So really, Manny's only got to beat Spence and Crawford. That's it, And if Manny Pacquiao was holding on to that WBA belt, it's probably because he wants to fight one of those eventually. He probably wants to fight one of those guys. So that's why. Otherwise, Manny doesn't need the belt. He can just vacate it. He doesn't need to hold on to that WBA belt. He doesn't need it at all. So if he's holding on to it, he's probably holding on to it for a reason. Because he probably wants to fight one of those two guys. So I find it stupid for them to think about stripping him. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Let the guy have a tune-up fight against McGregor, make millions and millions of pounds, and then he can fight Spence and Crawford. Let them two fight one another. I keep saying, let them two fight one another, then Manny can fight the winner for the undisputed championship. Makes sense. Makes sense. Doesn't make sense for you to strip Pacquiao. It just doesn't. Because Manny Pacquiao fight with Crawford or Spence will be a massive fight. It'll be an even bigger fight financially than them two both fighting one another. Simple as that. So I think that's a poor move from the WBA, and I think they should retract that if they are considering that, because from what that article said, it said they understand that WBA have said that if Manny Pacquiao decides to fight Conor McGregor, they would strip him, which again is, as I've explained, I think it's nonsense. I think there's a lot more that these belt organizations and organization bodies need to look at, than this situation. I think, it wouldn't make any sense for me. I think it would anger a lot of boxing fans as well, because that belt will probably become vacant, and there will be two guys fighting for it, and it will probably be guys that may not even be deserved to be a champion, or Manny Pacquiao is the third best welterweight right now, right, at minimum. Right, so he deserves to hold that belt. He beat the third best welterweight in Keith Thurman, right? So now Crawford and Spence are seen as number 1 and 2. I know Manny could easily be number 1 or 2 as well, but them two are seen as number 1 and 2 just because they're more fresher, they're young, they're in their prime. Why Manny Pacquiao beat the third best guy in Thurman. If he wants to hold on to that belt, it was probably because he wants to fight one of those two. But let him fight Conor McGregor. But why is that fight going to mean you're going to strip him? Doesn't make any sense. Maybe this fight with Conor McGregor is not going to go ahead, and Manny might want to have a fight with Spence. We just don't know at the minute. Manny's not said anything yet, so we don't know what he's thinking. But a fight between Conor McGregor is definitely something that I think he should entertain, just because it's a massive payday and an easy fight, which I don't think he should turn down. But that's my take on it. Let's talk about Crawford and Spence. Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. That's a fight which I would love to see happen. I think most people, if you were to ask them what fights they would want to see happen in boxing right now if they could be made, I think people would say Joshua Fury, Crawford Spence. I think Crawford Spence will, for the hardcore boxing fan, will probably be number 1, just because of the fact that the intrigue that fight would bring, and the fact that people would love to see those style clash. Spence is the bigger man, Crawford is the slickster. Spence is the bigger, punches harder, but Crawford's probably the more complete boxer. How is that fight going to play out? I think Spence wins, but again, there's my brother thinks Crawford wins. It's one of those fights. It's an unbelievable matchup. It's an unbelievable matchup and a fight that could go either way. So that's why the world of boxing wants to see it. Nobody's interested in Crawford Brook or even Spence Garcia. People aren't really interested in those fights. A lot of people don't even like Garcia Spence. Brook and Crawford's down the pecking order. But even Spence and Garcia, people don't look at that fight with that much intrigue. People watch it just because of the fact that, they don't know how Spence is and after the accident. But I haven't seen anyone say that Garcia is going to win that fight. And I haven't seen anyone say Brook's going to win that fight against Crawford. I haven't. Crawford Spence is one of those fights where it's a pick'em, where you'll have 50% of people saying Crawford wins, 50% of people saying Spence wins. But with those fights, I haven't seen anybody picking Brook to win. I haven't seen anybody picking Garcia to win. So personally, I think this fight needs to happen. I think they need to make this fight ASAP. I think let Manny do his thing with Conor McGregor, and then the winner of that fight between Spence and Crawford fights Manny Pacquiao for a huge payday. And Manny Pacquiao gets the opportunity to become an undisputed champion, something that he's never done. So I think it makes sense. I think straight after their fights with Brook and Garcia, they're both fighting at the same time, around the same time. Boom. Make that happen for February, March next year. You may be able to get some fans in there as well. So make it happen. The boxing fans want to see that fight. Make that fight happen for March time next year. Then you could get Manny Pacquiao at the end of the year. The winner gets Manny Pacquiao right at the end of the year. Simple as that. Manny's probably going to fight McGregor around that time. March, May, April, hopefully. And then we could get a massive unification or undisputed fight, in the fall of 2021. That's what I think they should do. Because at the end of the day, I think it makes sense. I do think that with the current situation, boxing fans are tired, and I don't think they're going to be paying that much money for these sideshow fights. They want to see they want to have the main course now. They want to see the main fights, and the main fights are Spence and Crawford. I think they can't mess around anymore. I think you need to make that fight happen after their fights. After Crawford fights Brook and after Spence fights Garcia, they need to make that fight next year. They need to make that fight. They need to make that fight, because I think that fight on pay-per-view could do some decent numbers. I don't think it does anything crazy, but it could do decent numbers because it's a proper fight. And if they can get a crowd in, even better. Who knows? They may be able to get that fight somewhere else where someone will be willing to pay a site fee. I'm not sure, and I doubt it because neither guy's a huge name, but it is a big fight in world boxing. So who knows what someone would be willing to put up for that fight? Maybe, maybe not, because like I said, neither guy's a serious name like that. But it is a great fight and a big fight. So we never know. Even if there's no fans that can be coming to the crowd, I think a fight like that between two Americans should be happening in America, just because of the fact that they're two Americans and such a big fight. I think the American audience that are boxing fans may not be happy if that fight goes elsewhere. But again, neither of those two guys have a huge following like that, and this game is about making money. So hopefully they can make this fight happen at the start of next year, March, April, whenever, if they can make it happen after their fights coming up next month. Just make it happen. It makes sense. There isn't any other fight for them to have now apart from each other. The other fight is Pacquiao, but Pacquiao's gonna fight McGregor. The winner gets a fight. Or maybe they do a 2-fight deal. Maybe Spence and Crawford fight twice. At the end of the day, they should just make that fight. Because for me, that fight's not going to get any bigger. I don't see it getting any bigger. If one of them beats Pacquiao, but you don't know what's going to happen with Pacquiao. So they need to strike now and make that fight, personally. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that, they should delay that fight? How do you think they should do it? Do you think that Terence Crawford, if he beats Brook, and Spence, if he beats Garcia, that they should make that fight straight after that? Or do you think they should wait and keep marinating it? Because with the current climate, we don't know what's going to go on now. With this COVID situation, this may be like this for the next 4 or 5 years. We may never be able to get to full capacity and bringing in a crowd. You just don't know, right? Because things are getting worse, especially in the UK. Things are getting worse by the day, right? And it's getting really bad. Right, and we don't know what's going to happen in 5-6 months' time. We're just speculating. Things might never get back to normal. Like I said, here in the UK, I don't know what it's like in America. Things are getting bad with this COVID day by day. We're talking about 6,000-7,000 new cases every day. Like, it's getting bad, right? So for me personally, I think they should just go ahead and make the fight. But again, we just don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen. But leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Make sure to hit the thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace.